We don't talk enough about how StarCraft has actually really good lore, and I'm here to fix that right here and right now. My name is Nick. I'm with the Lore Historians Pub, and if you're into fantasy, sci-fi lore, all that kind of stuff, the background behind a lot of the games and movies and TV shows and books and whatever that you like, that's what we do here. So drop a like, subscribe, comment, all that kind of good stuff, and let's get into talking about the Terrans from StarCraft. And this is part one of the first thing we need to understand about the Terrans from StarCraft is the fact that while Earth still exists in StarCraft, these are not really technically Earth Terrans. They came from Earth initially back in 2259 as part of a like giant supercarrier exploration group, and they settled in the Corpolo sector, but they're not related to Earth. A lot of these guys are like convicts and things like that that Earth didn't want, and they basically sent them all off. And that's kind of where we land with the Terrans at this point. And they eventually separated into three main groups. It was the Terran Confederacy, the Kelmorian Combine, and the Emojan Protectorate. And that's kind of the basis for where we start off with the Terrans in StarCraft. Now, the main faction for a long time was the Terran Confederacy. They were basically the main faction. And after a while, they had a rebel group called the Sons of Korhal, led by Arcturus Manx. And I'm glancing over a lot of stuff, and we're basically getting into StarCraft 1 at this point, but the Sons of Korhal led a rebellion. They beat the Terran Dominion, or Confederacy, and then started the Terran Dominion. And you had people like Jim Raynor and Sarah Kerrigan who are no longer a part of the Terran Dominion. And after a certain amount of time, the Terran Dominion is now the dominant faction, but they have a lot of enemies like the Protoss and the Zerg, and then those two other Terran factions are not exactly huge fans of them at this point. So that's kind of where it got left off with StarCraft 1. Now, after the Dominion becomes a thing, a lot of crazy stuff happens between the Brood War expansion in StarCraft and then StarCraft 2, where Raynor's rebels go to war with the Dominion at least a little bit further than they were at the time. And you've got factions like the United Earth Directorate who comes back into play and tries to fight Arcturus Menx. You've got the Protoss and the Zerg getting into the mix and causing a lot of problems for him. Basically, the Terran Dominion in this setting just gets punched around all the time. Now, I'm not going to go too far into the story past this, but the broad strokes are that the Terrans are this faction of just really scrappy Marines and battle cruisers and all this kind of crazy stuff that you kind of love from sci-fi, and they're always outgunned or outnumbered. The Zerg are going to outnumber them, the Protoss are going to outgun them, and they have to be kind of somewhere in this middle ground and just have a lot of troops that can hold the line, whether that's in space or on the ground. And if you want to hear more about the Terrans, let me know in the comment section, because basically if we do end up getting more into StarCraft, there's a ton we could talk about. It's not quite as big as Warhammer by any means, but it is something that we can really kind of geek out about for a while. So if you're into that sort of thing and you want to hear more about StarCraft, or you're like, hey, go back to Warhammer for a little bit, or you've got another fantasy or sci-fi area that you want to cover, we're here to do it. This is Nick from the Lore Historians Pub. I'll talk to you guys on the next one, and keep your eye out for part 2 where we talk about the Zerg.